Morning. Today's project is to upgrade my existing air compressor system with the new brushless twin ARB air compressor, twin onboard compressor. I have the original twin that is not brushless, so I am upgrading to this as it is purported to be 30% faster on inflation. So I'm pretty excited about this, and because I already have one in, the installation should be relatively simple. It will require using a whole new harness that comes with this, but I'm okay with that. But beautiful packing job on this. And there is our new compressor. So that's pretty. Yeah, very nice. Supposedly a little bit lighter. Dimensions are close to the original twin air. But as I say, the big deal on this is just the 30% increase in volume of air for inflating. So as I run 37-inch tires on my Jeep, this will certainly be a nice welcome addition. So let's get started on putting this thing in. We'll pull the old one out first and then put this one in. Okay, at the very bottom of the box lies the rest of the equipment. There are the operating instructions, new switch, and fittings for the air, bracket mounts for the compressor itself, and the new wiring harness. And this must be used. The old wiring harness will not work on the new compressor. So lots of things to hook up and plug in, but as I say, since I've at least got this thing previously wired, this should go pretty quickly. And I also, as this goes under the, or behind the passenger seat on the driver's side, or I'm sorry, on the driver's side, rear seat, I actually ran battery cables from the battery down under the frame and then back into the cab with posts inside and under the passenger seat. So I don't have to run the cables all the way to the main battery. I can hook them to the cable points that I have under the seat. I can show you that. That's worked really well with the existing compressor. So I'm hoping that will work with this one as well. One of the things that ARB has done here is, instead of putting the ends on all the wires, they've left them just taped in a bag here. So it looks like you can cut the wire to length and then crimp your ends on for all the wires that are part of this, which is kind of a nice touch. The one drawback I have at this point is this thing has no directions in it whatsoever. So I've got another switching cable here, isolation switch, switch 1, switch 2, plus this entire cabling system, and there are no directions. So I don't know if that came from the shop. I picked this up at Off-Road Warehouse. They may have given the directions away to someone else, or because the box was not sealed when I opened it. So anyway, shouldn't be hard to get on the internet and download them. But anyway, that's where we're at this point. All right, so a quick run up to the computer and a search for the ARB Brushless Compressor owner's manual, and sure enough, found a PDF, managed to download it. The nice thing is I could also customize it to where I didn't have any of the pages it didn't apply. So I do have the owner's manual now, or the installation manual now, and all this makes a lot more sense already. So this whole switch here, these switches and the isolating switch, is if you intend to connect locking differentials, ARB's locking differentials, to your air compressor, which in my case I do not. I've got the locking diffs that come on the Rubicon, so I don't even need to mess with that, which makes it a lot easier right out of the gate. All right, so we'll get into the Jeep and we'll get started on this. All right, so after what seems like almost an eternity studying this wire diagram, I think I have a I think I've got it figured out. So the isolation switch is basically the on-off switch. So I trace the colors here, and to line it up, the middle tab on the switch in the center only has one, where everyone else has two. So I line that to the upside like it is in the diagram, and then I could trace the color of the wires from this isolating switch here into that. So that takes care of the switch. These switch 1 and 2 are for lockers. I can cut that off. I don't need that. And then the rest of this will end up, I'll splice this together and it will connect into the switch, which now leaves this red and yellow and the black wire. See, the red and yellow is a power switch, so this is supposed to be on switch, so this is supposed to go somewhere switch power, like a cigarette port adapter, somewhere where the ignition has to be on before it gets power. And then this wire illuminates the switch, which I'm not that concerned about, but same thing, like if it were on switch power, I can plug that in and then the ARB switch will illuminate when it's on. So that's that. And then the rest of this now becomes real simple. These two little wires here go into the pressure switch, there and there. And then I basically, from here on out, I don't need these two get-ups here because that's also for air locker installation, so I can tape those off. And then I'm basically left with positive and a ground, and the positive will go into the two terminals here on this switch. This will go to the battery, and the ground can go to the frame, or in my case I can just put it on the negative post of the battery. So finally this is starting to make some sense, but it took a bit. There's a lot going on here. Okay, so now looking at the hardware mounting of this, there's two dust caps in here, and this is where you put the pressure switch, and it can go in either one based on your preference. I think I'd rather have it deeper since mine's going to be vertically behind my passenger seat. So I will unscrew this, put some Teflon tape on, tighten that down, and that puts on the isolator switch. And then the hardware mount is really simple. These ridges along the compressor itself, one goes on one end, the other goes on the other, and then it has a compression, so you can slide this up and down kind of where you want it based on your personal application, and then you can just push that down and it locks in place, and then you've got a mount. So also very straightforward. So this will go into, I may have to drill some new holes, but we'll figure it out, and put it into my existing 813 fabrication rack mount that I had with my original compressor. All right, so at this point, I'm just going to replace everything that's on here other than this hose that comes from the compressor, and that's what connects an airline air hose to the compressor itself. But I'm going to pull this switch, replace it with a new switch, because the colors don't line up, so I'm not 100% sure which one what goes to which. So take that off. I've already separated it here. And then, as you can see, I've got battery posts here, a hot and a ground, that I've run through and under the frame, so everything is really easy to connect on that one. So at this point I'm going to disconnect all the electrical from the existing ARB, and then pull that one out and start putting in the new one. Okay, the wires from the original switch have been disconnected. The switch popped out, just little detents on the back. So say I do intend to keep this in place, and I'll just wire that into the new compressor as we go forward. So the disassembly has begun. So here is my existing compressor. It is mounted on a plate here by 813 Fabrication and Design, and it's as you can see, against the back wall of the passenger side. So it's behind the passenger seat on the driver's side. So I'll need to get a couple Allen wrenches to lift that out, and we'll pull this thing out and start taking it apart, and then do all the electrical and keep going from there. Hard to see, it's right behind the wiring harness. There's a whole lot of wiring back here. Oh, there we are. There she is. So the 813 Fabrication Designs, they make this really cool mounting system that puts this all together. So they fabricated these pieces, and that makes it pretty easy to take in and pull out without having to drill into the body or the Jeep at all. So as you can see, the older ARB had two fuses basically in line that connected together to go into the compressor, where the new one's got its own separate line. So just a little bit of a different system, but still pretty good setup. So we'll be taking these apart now and getting that all ready to go. I do have to remove this initially in order to get the compressor out, because there's nowhere to, I don't have the angle or the length to pull it out from the other side. So we'll disconnect this here. We'll end up resealing all that when it's done. And now I've got some room to pull the compressor out. And there we go. There's our old compressor. Figure out what's hung up on here. Okay, there we go. Much better. And the dust cap. All right, so old compressor, other than the wiring harness, which I'll pull out now, is out. And then we'll reuse this. This is the 813 Fabrication Design mount. I think I may have to re-drill the holes. I'm not sure it'll line up exactly right. But again, doesn't seem like that'll be too big of a challenge. So, all right, now we'll just disconnect it, and that will be that for the old one. All right, so the next phase of this project is to start to assemble the new compressor with a pressure switch and then a hose outlet. I think I'm going to try and use the straight one. I pulled the 90 degree off my old compressor, but I think I can get away with the straight. It might make it easier to not kink this cable or this hose, metal hose, when I'm hooking it over to where the air chuck will connect into. So I'm going to wrap these with some Teflon tape and thread them in. I believe I'm going to put the pressure switch in the back because it's got the wires that have to come up, so it's going to be a little deeper coming out. We'll see how it goes. All right, we have the pressure switch in nice and snug, not too deep. Obviously, I got the Teflon tape on there, but it's snug. It's not moving. And now I'll put the air valve in next, and then we'll start fitting this mount to fit on this bracket, which is my original 813 Designs bracket. So I'm hoping somehow I can get this thing to situate along here somewhere, even if I have to drill another hole. So onward we go. We got it. So that one's out. A little more Teflon tape. Actually, this one has a washer on it, so I don't think I need the Teflon tape on this one. So hopefully I'm right about that. Guess if it leaks, I know I was wrong. Now, because the outlet tube does not have a washer on it, I will put thread tape on this before we connect the outlet hose to it. And then we'll thread this on there. And that's it for adding components to the new compressor. I hope. The bench work is about done other than mounting it to the new mount. Another tight area to work here. Let me see here. Okay, I think that's snug. Okay, so that's that. Other than now we got to figure out how to get this thing on this mount where it will fit the old bracket. So I think this is going to be some trial and error, and then I have to decide if I want this compressor with the filters up or the filters down. My preference would be filtered down, but I've got to have enough room here for this hose to bend without kinking it in the process. So we'll take a look at all of that. All right, so my original plan of this straight is not going to work. I am going to need that 90-degree bend because it's just putting too much of a kink on the hose. So pull this guy out and replace it with the 90-degree. The 90-degree does not have a washer, so it will need some Teflon tape. So, okay. Trial and error. Okay, now with the 90-degree threaded in, and I can also throw that at a 45-degree angle, I should be able to run the hose out at an angle no matter where it is on the bracket and avoid any kind of sharp bend in it as it works its way around back to the outlet hose. I hope. All right, so I've decided I am going to have to drill holes in this thing. I'm going to use these two, and then I'm going to mark holes here for the other one. And I think that's pretty close to even. There's a little room under behind that seat for left and right, so I don't care if it's exactly 100% balanced left or right, but it gives me a target. All right, let's see if that works. All right, well, if I'm lucky, that'll be it for the drilling today. So it looks like the holes lined up pretty good because there's a margin of error on the other side, so that gives me a little bit of flex to play with. All right, so we'll bolt this up and go from there. Okay, so we got that started. We'll tighten these down, then put the compressor on it and start fine fitting it for behind the seats. So we're off to the races. All right, it is all mounted up. The nice thing with the new sliding mount that comes with the new brushless, you can move it up and down, and that gave me plenty of room here to both add in the pressure switch and the hose. So as this rides in the back of the Jeep against the back window, it will be oriented like that. So I should have plenty of room to work, so that's looking promising. So now it's turn two on the electrical half of this, so I'm going to go plug this in on that lead side of my battery cable, and then add the two red wires go on either end of this here. So we'll get that installed. That's the next step, and go from there. All right, so I got the hot wired back into the battery post here. So once we get the compressor in, we'll trim the wire and mount it to these two guys right here, and that's the end of the hot side. So that went pretty smoothly. So I was just checking these seat bolts here. I assumed they were a good ground if I didn't want to go back to a ground post on the battery, and they sure are. So we're good to go there. So okay, so I can use that instead of even worried about the ground post. Okay, since I already predetermined where all these go, I'm going to permanently clip them in and then just feed that all through here, and not take a chance on screwing up the who goes what goes where on this. So we'll just push those all in firmly. Like so. And I already know, for example, I can just cut this off because I'm not going to be using the switch. So I'll cut this off, put some electrical tape around it, and then feed the rest through and put in the switch, and that should do it for the switch. And conversely, on the main harness, I don't need these two because that's what all of these go plugging into. So I can cut these, got the pressure regulator switch, the two cables, and then I think this guy can go too because that leads up to one of the isolation switches. So, boy, I'm a little nervous before I start cutting things though, so I am triple checking here. But I think these two can go and this can go. Yeah, confirmed. So the really long cable obviously goes to the switches, which people would normally expect to be up in the dashboard. So you've got your on-off switch and then your front and rear locker. That connects to this through here. So all of that can go away in my application. So here we go, the moment of truth. We start cutting this stuff off. A little nervous doing this. It'll be all right. So, don't need that. Don't need this. Oh, hold on. Yeah, I do need it a little bit, don't I? I just can shorten it, I think. All right, hang on a minute before I do that. Okay, so matching the exact color combination that's coming off this switch with the yellow, red, blue, and green, I matched them in the exact same spot, and now that should go together and into the main harness. Okay, and then I'm getting down on wires. So this is for the ignition on, which I may just wire directly into the hot, and this is if you want the switch to light up. And you also have another ground, which I may put on that seat since I was talking about that. All right, let's go get this guy wired, punched into where it belongs on the switch panel. And one note when you're putting these on, if you can pull it and it comes back out, or I'm sorry, not here, but at the other end of this on here, when you're pushing those tabs through this mount, I'm sorry, and clicking them in, if you can pull them back out, you've got them backwards. So turn it around 180 degrees, push it back in. You should hear a distinctive click on all of those. Just a tip. Okay, so now I fed all the wire through here, and I can push this in, and it should just clip right in place. There we go. And that will be the switch. So that little piece of it is done. We're getting there. Yep, and so that fits back in there like that. I'll run that here. We still got to obviously get the air hose run through, but yeah, I think I'm going to run that up like that, and I may try and do the same thing with the air hose when it threads around. I need it to come up somewhere. It gets a little hot, but I guess it'll be okay against that tape. Yeah. Okay, another little breath-holding moment of truth, but these two guys are gone, don't need them. So we'll cut those guys and tape those up. Okay, kind of blends in with the rest of the wire harness now. Okay, so compressor, pressure switch, hot, ground. And we're off to the races now. I think the big moment of truth is, can I get this compressor to fit back in here and do what I need it to do? We shall see. All right. Okay, so here we go. Let's see if this bad bear will go back in as it did before. And if it does, okay, that's lining up. And that's lined up. I need to feed the air hose. Let me get everything off of here. And there might be more coming through here if I can find it. Yep, there it is. Okay. Okay, so that's through. Doesn't look too problematic, and it looks like, hoping that will fit under here to there. Yeah, looks like that's going to work. So, okay, getting closer here. Getting closer. Very exciting. So, let's see. I may want to go on and plug in the two big connectors in the pressure switch, because all that's got to get, if I can reach it easily, I'll go on and tighten this thing down. Yeah, that one's easy to get to. That one's easy to get to. The pressure switch, on the other hand, is not. So let's get that pressure switch in, and that will start getting the harness in its location. Yeah, and then we can tighten those bolts down. But this is going to work. Yeah, that fits. So, okay, this is good news. Oh, yeah, I already did that. Got the hose through. Man, a lot of moving parts here. Okay, so just need it up a little bit to get to the pressure switch for just a second. Okay. Right, there's all I need. Okay. All right, let's get that pressure switch in. This guy, and I'll go check to make sure. I don't know if these are interchangeable or not, but let me go check the wiring diagram and I'll find out. All right, so the wiring diagram had the red on the right side of this thing, or I guess this side, left if you're looking at it, and the blue on this side. So we'll get that guy in there. Okay, another part wired in. All right, and then since we're here, I guess we'll go on and do this. Get in the main harnesses are connected. Done. All right, so I've got the compressor all bolted in. All the wires are connected to it. I've got the hot and the brown going here. The seat folds up. Does not. Seatbelt does, but the compressor doesn't interfere, so that's good to go. So now I'm going to trace the hot and the ground under the frame here, or under the seat rather, and then trim these to fit on the post that I have over here. And we're getting close, although I did think of one thing. I should probably make sure. I don't want to wire this thing in and have it cut on suddenly. So I believe that's the off position and that's the on position. So hope that's right, but worst case scenario, I guess I'll jump out of my skin if it starts. Okay, I have all the wires now run back onto this side of the seat and where the posts are. This is bolted in. So as far as I am pretty convinced, that's it for this half of the job. So I think I can close this up now pretty permanently and start working under here on this side from here on out. Yeah, that's my hot to the switch, which I may just end up tapping in here because I don't have a convenient, and that's my ground here. I don't have a convenient port anywhere around here where there's switchable power. So, let's see. And I can start thinking about this guy too. come back to that in a second because I want to put new Teflon tape on that one. Alright, so I've got plenty of length to cut here on the two hot wires. So I'll be cutting those right about here, I think. And this is no longer needed. And then we'll get these guys ready to splice. Thick wire. All right, get those twisted up. Now the shrink tubing here. Add the rings. All right, that looks pretty good. Get this guy out of the way right now. And then we'll crimp this guy down. All right, so we'll get that guy on and then repeat for the other one. Okay, second one's in, that's it. We can close that up, I think, and we should be good to go on the lead. So I put some fresh Teflon onto the connector, hose connector. I will tighten that down nice. Okay, that should be pretty airtight right there. So that's all done. The mains is all wired in. So I'm ready to start bolting this back down. Then I'm going to connect this switchable hot and then the ground to the frame last. And that's it. That should be it. So we shall see how this goes. All right, so we'll connect these guys now. And then I'm just going to take all that excess and wrap it up with a zip tie. I think it'll probably be the easiest thing to do there. Okay, that's in. And then I can just loop all this up. With a zip tie, I hope. At least back to there, something like that. Then I can put that all down in there, and that should be nice and clean. We can bolt that back up, and then it's just the hot, the ground, and if I want that light, which I'm probably not going to use. So let me go get some zip ties, and we'll do that next. All right, so I've zip tied up all that extra cabling that's designed to go to the dashboard switch, because my switch is back here, and it was easier than trying to cut it and put all the new mounts on it. So that is it from a wiring perspective, other than, like I said, the switchable hot, the ground, and the light. So I'm going to start buttoning this back up, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, so that's all back in place. Catch is in, switch is in. We'll put the ground here. I'm not going to use the light, and I'm going to wire the hot over here. Where that wire Where is she went somewhere? Yeah, right here. I'll clip that in. May just tap it into something hot over there. So with that, we should be getting close to done. I hope this works. All right, so I've got the switch wired over to the hot because I don't care if it turns on when it's hot. You can't hear that compressor's running. You probably got another problem. So I'm not worried about leaving it on inadvertently or draining the battery or anything like that. So it's wired into there. And now I'll plug in the ground, and if I did this right, I will have a compressor. So I'm excited. All right, so I'm just going to pull this seat bolt off, put that right there, and see if this thing works. All right, that's on there. Of course, I guess I don't want it to come off, as it is the seat. Good night. All right. All right, that took some gumption, but finally getting the sucker loose. You do not want the seats coming out of here, and I certainly appreciate that. All right. I think we're getting it now. Okay, that's it. It's all wired up. It is done. Ground is here, wired in the switch, and the moment of truth on this thing is if it's going to work or not. So let's see. How about that? All right, that makes me feel pretty good, and for some other reason it still lit up. So okay, this was a good day. I'm doing a scouting trip for our search and rescue motorized unit tomorrow for a certification course, and certainly going to need to air down and air back up my tires tomorrow. So I'm glad we got this done and in, and I'm a happy camper. All right, well, I thought before I go out to the desert tomorrow and start using this thing for real, I should probably op test it on a tire and see, make sure it all works. So I got it just set up here real quick. It is holding air. I have turned the switch off, but when I plugged all this together, there's still air in the line, so it is holding air, so that's a good sign. So I'll lower this thing down and give it a time and see how quickly it fills back up. All right, so we're down to 20 psi, and let's get this thing filled back up and make sure it works. All right, so I'm actually showing about 17 on this tire, and fire it up. Yeah, you can hear how they kick in separately, which is nice. And let's see, I'll start the stopwatch now. Okay, I'm at 1 minute and 21 seconds, and I am showing 37 psi on the dashboard. So that's pretty darn fast. Under 1.5 minutes. I'm pretty happy with that. So okay, cool. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you on the next project.